Right now on Morning News Now, resolution. A tentative deal has been struck this morning between Hollywood's writers and the major studios that could bring picketing creatives back to work. We'll bring you the details in just a moment. Also this morning, countdown to shutdown. It's a federal spending stalemate in Washington as House Republicans clamor to come to a comprehensive budget consensus that'll keep the government's lights on before that looming September 30th deadline.
So you don't think there's going to be a shutdown?
Look, I think we're able to work through this. At the end of the day, get there.
We've got the latest on what's at stake, plus the growing calls from Democrats for Senator Bob Menendez's resignation in the wake of his federal indictment for allegedly accepting bribes. It's a soggy start to the work week for millions of Americans as the remnants of weakening Ophelia soak the Northeast. We've got its latest track and when we could start seeing a little sunshine. And Love Story is a possible gridiron romance brewing between Taylor Swift and Kansas City Chiefs star Travis Kelce. Well, a weekend skybox sighting could point to a T-Swift touchdown.
This morning, millions of Taylor Swift fans are suddenly football fans.
And you've got all the info on that, I know.
We'll have all the details. Should be a good one. Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Valerie Castro in for Savannah Sellers. We have a possible deal. Hollywood's major media companies and the Writers Guild have reached a tentative agreement that could end the months-long writers' strike. In a message to its members, the WGA called the potential deal, quote, exceptional.
Now, the deal comes after 5 straight days of negotiations. Those talks resumed last week with major industry executives at the table. If the union membership votes to approve the deal, it will end one of the longest walkouts in entertainment history. Thousands of screenwriters first hit the picket lines nearly 150 days ago after contract negotiations with the studios failed. Entertainment journalist and pop culture expert Brian Balthazar is keeping tabs on it all. Joins us now with the latest. Brian, good morning. So first of all, what do we know about this tentative deal?
Well, it's really interesting. We are finding after 5 days of intense negotiations, they're saying that it has some meaningful gains and protections on all of the fronts, and that network executives, 4 of the big ones, were in attendance for many of these days to kind of loosen up the logjam. Now, what we do know is that picketing, they say, can stop for the Guild, but people can continue to picket for SAG-AFTRA's strike. And what will happen next is they will go over the final contract language. They're not releasing any of the details of this deal yet until they get that worked out. And then they will draft up a memorandum of the agreement. And then at that point, the Writers Guild West Coast Board and the East Coast Council will then vote on whether it's prepared and proper to then bring to the membership to meet, discuss, and then subsequently vote. So we're not there yet, but this is the most promising space that we've been in thus far.
And Brian, now that a possible agreement has been reached, what happens next? Is there anything that goes into production immediately?
Well, it's going to take a little bit of time for some things to gear up, but the most likely productions to get quickly started are the talk shows, because many of them, as you've reported on this program, were ready to go last week. And in fact, we're going to go until the solidarity of the unions really shut those down. So the talk shows will be the first things you'll notice, but other things are going to take a little time to staff up and get started.
And Brian, I mean, the feeling is we're still not going to see most stuff come back until the actors' strike is done. So let's talk about that one. Is there a feeling that once the writers' deal is done, we will see the actors return to the bargaining table to try and get a deal there?
Right. Well, in fact, in reaction to this, SAG-AFTRA did release a statement saying that they're looking forward to the AMPTP coming back to the table to discuss, because they've been at somewhat of a standstill. And as you mentioned, there's only so much you can do without the performers. So they've been watching to see how these negotiations go, and they'll be looking to see what these deal points are and see which one of those will help, inform their negotiations with the studios as well. But it's going to take a while still before that to get worked out.
And Brian, the sticking points with the actors do have a little bit of overlap with the writers, right?
Absolutely, particularly when it comes to the use of artificial intelligence. In the case of the writers, they wanted to make sure that artificial intelligence wasn't being used to write scripts for them. And in other cases, for the actors, they wanted to make sure that artificial intelligence wasn't being used to harness their own performances to generate other performers or other acting performances based on theirs. So there's some establishing parameters that will be made there. And then, of course, residuals for streaming. That's going to be a big one. And we'll be looking to see what this deal has and what it could be used to apply to the SAG-AFTRA deal.
And both of those issues are issues we haven't really had to see dealt with in previous contract negotiations because they're both so new. That's part of the reason this is such a long process. Brian Balthazar,
exactly.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Turning now to Capitol Hill, where House Republicans remain divided over the federal spending budget.
Time is running out for lawmakers to reach an agreement on government spending. If Congress can't reach that deal by the end of the week, the government will shut down on October 1st. That's Sunday. President Biden now ramping up his messaging, calling on Republicans to find a way around their political stalemate.
If the government shuts down, that means members of Congress, members of the U.S. military are going to have to continue to work and not get paid. A government shutdown could impact everything from food safety to cancer research to Head Start programs for children. Funding the government is one of those basic responsibilities of Congress. And it's time for Republicans to start doing the job America elected them to do.
Thousands of federal employees are at risk of being furloughed if the government shuts down, and financial experts fear a government closure could strike a blow to an already fragile economy.
NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale joins us now with the details. Ali, good morning to you. Thanks for being with us. House Republican leaders met over the weekend to discuss a potential move forward with the shutdown, but little progress was made. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is now considering a 45-day extension of federal spending, but not all House GOP members are on board. Let's take a listen.
If Speaker McCarthy ultimately allows a deal to pass with Democratic votes, would you support ousting him from the Speaker's chair?
That would be something I would look strongly at, ma'am. If we do away with our duty that we said we were going to do. They're all talking about this promise that he made with Biden a year ago. With Biden a year ago. What about the promise we made to the American public that we were going to be responsible Americans? Ma'am, we are going to be governing over a pile of rubble if we're not careful.
So, Ali, what needs to happen this week among Republicans to avoid a shutdown? Does McCarthy need to have the help of Democrats to pass anything, and what is the risk?
Look, the risk is exactly what we heard from Congressman Burchett there on another network over the weekend. The idea that government funding is so squarely tied to McCarthy's future ability to, frankly, just keep his job. The way that we're seeing Republicans talk about each other, this is not anyone other than House Republicans negotiating against themselves effectively. We're watching McCarthy over the weekend try to float a 30-day continuing resolution, a 45-day continuing resolution. And all that really means is he's just trying to buy some time, trying to get past the September 30th deadline so the government doesn't shut down, and then, of course, try to make good on some of the spending promises that he made to the most right flank of his conference. What's at odds here is the fact that many of those right-wing members, I'm thinking about people like Congressman Matt Gaetz, have said they will never sign a continuing resolution, which means they're not here to help McCarthy extend the clock. Frankly, they're not here to help McCarthy at all. And it really does leave him at an impasse. Will he look to his left and try to pick up some moderate members on the Democratic side that could allow him to glide this through on a bipartisan track? Certainly, that would put him closer in line with what the Senate in bipartisan fashion wants to do, which is avoid a shutdown. But it would really endanger him with the rest of his conference. And you would most likely see in the immediate aftermath of that a motion to vacate or fire the Speaker from his job.
So, Ali, Democrats in the Senate, they're already preparing for a temporary funding measure as House Republicans scramble for this last-minute deal. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, he's the one leading that push, looking to hold a test vote tomorrow. What more do we know about this? I mean, what, if anything, can the Senate do here?
Looking to hold a test vote on this, and this is really Schumer starting the clock on his side of the building, because there will also be some procedural hurdles that he has to get over that'll take some time. I mean, I've asked Speaker McCarthy this multiple times. We're all talking about the September 30th deadline and the House having to meet that. Yes, but also anything that the House passes has to go to the Senate. The Senate will inevitably make changes and then send it back to the House. All of that is a pretty lengthy process. We know that this isn't a town that typically moves quickly. So while the House is trying to sort of get out of its circular firing squad, what we're watching Senator Schumer do is start the clock on his side of the building, and he gets to do that with bipartisan support. Senator Mitch McConnell, the top Republican in that chamber, has said he doesn't want to go to a shutdown. Here's what'll be interesting about that. There are a handful of Republicans on the rightmost flank on the Senate side who have tried in the past to give their House counterparts some leverage here. That's something that they've really struggled with, and it hasn't helped House Republicans yet. But we'll see if Senate Republicans continue to back them up, and that could also stretch this process out.
And, Ali, while we have you, let's talk about the indictment of Senator Bob Menendez. He's set to hold a press conference later today to address those bribery charges against him. What can we expect to see and hear from that?
Yeah, Valerie, as if we didn't have enough to focus on Capitol Hill, you've got the House trying to avoid a shutdown. They're starting on their impeachment inquiry this week. And then we have these new charges against Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey. Look, not the first time we've seen him face corruption charges. In his last re-election cycle, this was a front and center issue. He did then what he's doing now, which is stepping down from his chairmanship atop the Foreign Relations Committee. That's not necessarily letting off enough steam, though. You've got Democratic senators like John Fetterman saying they think he should resign. At this point, Fetterman is the only fellow senator saying that, but we'll be waiting to see, of course, if there are more. And I'll just preempt you guys and say I'm happy to stick around for the Taylor Swift segment since I was very, very keenly watching football, as I always do on Sunday, but excited to see Taylor with her signature red lip at the Chiefs game.
Exactly. Your worlds collided there.
Perfect.
Ali Vitale, thanks so much.
Thousands of additional members of the United Auto Workers Union are expected to join the picket lines this morning. Union leaders say it is a result of stalled talks between two of the three national automakers and the union. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch is in Michigan with the latest.
Still no agreements, but the UAW says it is closer to a new contract with Ford than it is with the other two automakers. The union writing in part, quote, "Our pressure on Ford is starting to pay off." And while Ford just reached a new agreement with the Canadian Auto Workers Union, it says when it comes to the UAW negotiations, more work still needs to be done. The union, though, striking a different tone when it comes to General Motors and Stellantis. The union president saying in part they, quote, "are going to need some serious pushing." And so the union has now expanded its strike to all parts distribution facilities for those two companies. The companies have criticized union leadership. And all this is unfolding as the 2024 presidential spotlight falls on the UAW labor dispute. President Biden says tomorrow he will join the picket line in Michigan. And on Wednesday, former President Donald Trump, he's expected to speak to workers in this state. All of this coming as we're possibly just days away from seeing the impact on consumers more directly. Because parts distribution facilities are being blocked up, essentially, by these strikes for GM and Stellantis. One dealership group telling me, for example, they've stocked up on high-demand parts like brake pads. But if you need something like an engine, that could become tricky to find. That dealership group estimating that it could be just days before we see an impact as a result of this. And it's not clear what kind of stockpiles the companies have right now in terms of parts to get out to dealerships still. So it's not clear how long things could seem normal before we start seeing those impacts. But again, that one dealership group telling me that it could be just days. Back to you.
All right, Jesse Kirsch, thank you.
This morning, we're getting new insight into the 2024 presidential election. A new NBC News poll shows major concerns for both President Biden and Republican frontrunner former President Trump.
According to the poll, 3/4 of voters say they are concerned about President Biden's age and mental fitness, while nearly 2/3 have concerns about the multiple trials that former President Trump faces. For more, we're joined by NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray. Mark, good to have you with us. So what more does this new poll tell us about all the voter concerns right now?
Yeah, Joe, this poll shows a very kind of gloomy forecast for the 2024 presidential election. And in addition to those worries and concerns that voters have about both President Biden and former President Donald Trump, our poll ends up showing, Joe Biden's approval rating is just at 41%, while the favorable rating for Trump is at 35%. So tough numbers for both candidates. And as you just ended up showing, the general election is deadlocked at 46% each for Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Very consistent with most of the polls end up having, looking 13 months ahead to the general election.
Mark, we know it's not all bad news for former President Trump, despite nearly 2/3 of voters polled saying they were concerned over Trump's pending trials. His lead over fellow Republican presidential hopefuls is actually growing. How do you make sense of that? Help us here.
Yeah. And so, as you mentioned, 62% of all voters end up having concerns about Donald Trump's multiple criminal trials. But that 70% of Republican voters, or nearly 70%, say they aren't concerned. And so there is a disconnect there where you end up having Democrats and independents concerned, but most Republican voters not. And as you mentioned, his lead has gone up to 43 points over Ron DeSantis. It was 29 points in June, according to our poll. Now it's 43, and that comes after his latest indictment in Fulton County, Georgia, from last month, as well as him skipping the first Republican debate and also skipping the second one that comes on Wednesday.
So we saw how President Biden matches up with Trump right now. As of now, how does the president match up with other potential Republican opponents in the general election?
Yeah, against Ron DeSantis, President Biden has a 1-point lead, well within the margin of error. But against Nikki Haley, the former United Nations ambassador and former governor of Georgia, she holds a 5-point lead over President Biden. And as our pollsters put it to us, Haley isn't as well known as DeSantis and Donald Trump. So she is kind of serving almost as the generic Republican who isn't all that well defined at this stage, but it's kind of more a look at where President Biden is with most voters right now.
All right. Mark Murray breaking it down for us. Thank you so much, Mark.
And those growing concerns about the next presidential leader also call into question the future of each party. On this week's Meet the Press, Kristen Welker sat down with South Carolina Congressman James Clyburn to discuss what the path forward looks like for Democrats.
Hi there, Joe and Valerie. This week on Meet the Press, I spoke with Democratic Congressman Jim Clyburn of South Carolina. Take a look at what he had to say when I asked him if Vice President Harris is the future of the Democratic Party.
I see her as a part of that future, absolutely.
Is she the future, though? Is she the future of the Democratic Party?
Oh, she could very well be. I think she is running a very good campaign. Her speech last night was great, and I look to her as a successor to this president. But I also know the history of that as well. It's not a given. You don't automatically move up. She'll have to compete going forward with whoever may have dreams and aspirations, and I think she will acquit herself well.
Well, I know that you're saying you don't look at the polls too much, but our poll does show her favorability is actually lower than President Biden and even than former President Trump. Why do you think she's not resonating more with voters? What do you think the issue is?
Because when you compare the first woman of color and first woman to be vice president of the United States and compare that to all of the history before, you will get that. I think that during this campaign, she will demonstrate, as she did in that hall last night, that she knows exactly what she's doing. She has the capacity and the capability to be president of the United States if called upon to do so.
And you can see my full interview with him and a lot more at meetthepress.com. You can also get more Meet the Press here on NBC News Now every weekday at 4 p.m.
Kristen Welker, thanks so much.
Tropical storm Ophelia created a total washout this weekend for millions up and down the East Coast. The storm made landfall in North Carolina Saturday at near hurricane strength, bringing high winds, heavy rain, and flooding. And this morning, while many are just starting the cleanup process, it doesn't look like the wet weather is finished just yet.
Now let's get a closer look at what to expect as the remnants of Ophelia continue to hit the Northeast with soggy weather.
Meteorologist Michelle Grossman joins us with your Morning News Now forecast. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning. Great to see you guys. And yeah, it is another soggy start. We're looking at heavy rain bands, some breezy conditions, another raw day. It's a slow improvement. We're going to see that once again tomorrow. And then finally by Wednesday, we're going to be drying out. But this is what it looks like right now on radar. Lots of green. That's the rain shield. Even some yellows, reds, oranges. That's showing us where heavy rain is falling. So we're seeing those bands. Ophelia, or what's left of Ophelia, is right off the New Jersey coast. So it's going to be moving to the east over the Atlantic as we go throughout the day. But as we go throughout the day, we're expecting periods of rain continuing. Also those breezy conditions. So you need your umbrella as you head out. Gale warning still in effect. Also some minor coastal flooding in those areas that are prone to flooding. Not a whole lot of rain expected in addition to what we got over the weekend, but still could see up to an inch in some spots in those heavier pockets where you get that banding setting up. Otherwise, we're looking at a quarter inch, a half inch, just really nuisance spawning in poor drainage areas. So Ophelia, the remnants of Ophelia does continue. Also looking at the chance for some heavy rain, we have a front that's going to be draped over the area. It's also a sea breeze kind of increasing the moisture from the Gulf to the Caribbean. And we could see rainfall rates of 2 to 3 inches per hour. So several spots across the country looking at rain as we go throughout the day. Then as we go throughout midweek, we're looking at repeat rounds of heavy rainfall, also a flood of risk with all that rainfall we'll see as we go throughout the next couple of days. Out to the west, we have an atmospheric river, so we're looking at anywhere from 2 even up to 3 inches of rain. You can see that rain falling right now. Still seeing some yellows too out west, and that's because we're looking at some really gusty winds, some really heavy rain because of that atmospheric river. And that's what it is. It's a big area of low pressure kind of picking this moisture up and dropping it into the Pacific Northwest from Washington to Oregon into Northern California. Lots of moisture and those windy conditions. But where you see these reds, oranges, yellows, that's corresponding to 1 inch to 2 inches, 3 inches. So this is a lot of rain. It rained there yesterday. We're seeing that once again today. Remember, we have some burn scar areas, so we could see some mudslides, risk of flash flooding as well. That is out west. Then we're looking at the deep south, the chance for some strong to severe storms. Houston, Victoria, Del Rio. We could see this later on today as we kind of get that daytime heating going. I mentioned Florida also seeing the chance for some strong to severe storms and heavy rain falling there over the next few days, even up to 2-3 inches from Jacksonville to Daytona Beach, Melbourne, Fort Myers, and also Miami. Not great vacation weather if you do have vacation plans there. Then as we go throughout the rest of today, sunny and warm through the middle of the country. Some showers falling in the upper Midwest. Shouldn't see many storms there. Looks like to be more of a nuisance of some showers. That heavy rain out west. We are warm in portions of the southwest. Temperatures into the 90s, and there's that rain falling in the deep south. Then by Wednesday, rain does continue, cool and wet in the Pacific Northwest. We're dry in the Southwest. We're going to be warm once again, not as warm as we have been, but still temperatures into the 90s, into the triple digits in parts of Arizona. We're going to dry it out in portions of the South in Texas. But look at the Gulf Coast. That heavy rain does continue, and that's why we're concerned about flooding over the next couple of days. That heavy rain still falling in parts of Florida, and we're looking at that upper Midwest into the Ohio Valley, looking at some rain as well. Some sunshine in the Northeast. We're going to dry it out there finally on Wednesday. But look what happens as we go by Friday. We're looking at another front that's going to come through. That's going to bring the chance of rain back into the forecast by Wednesday or by Thursday and also Friday. So coastal rain from the mid-Atlantic into the Carolinas, the southeast. Texas heat returns on Friday. We're looking at lots of sunshine. It's going to be dry, but it's going to be warm. And then mountain snow. We haven't talked about this in a while, but that could happen there today in the Pacific Northwest in the highest elevations. We're going to see a mix today, but by later on this week, by Friday, we're looking at some mountain snow. So something to keep in mind as we go throughout the rest of the work week. Also, we're talking about the tropics. We have Tropical Storm Philippe. It looks like it's going to stay out into the Atlantic, which is good news. We have a big area of high pressure called the Bermuda High. It's going to kind of spin around that. So that's one storm system. Also watching another low coming off the African coast. That could cause some problems. We're still days away, maybe a week away. So we're going to be watching that as we go throughout time. So really 3 areas with what's left over from Ophelia bringing that rain still. But we'll keep our eye on Philippe as well.
Right. I feel like I'm living in the Pacific Northwest again.
I know. It's been days and days,
like,
right?
Yeah, no, I'm having Seattle flashbacks. Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you. Coming up, we love a good space story here on Morning News Now. And this morning, NASA is making history once again with an asteroid sample that's truly out of this world.
But first, a breaking point at the southern border and beyond as a new surge of migrants pushes cities across the U.S. to the brink. Now the Defense Department is stepping in to try and mitigate the ongoing crisis. More on that next.
We're back with the latest on the worsening crisis on the U.S. southern border. Thousands of migrants continue crossing into the country, straining the nation's immigration system. Now the Defense Department is ramping up resources at the U.S.-Mexico border as officials try to process all of those people trying to come through. NBC News correspondent Guad Venegas is in Eagle Pass, Texas, where officials have recently restarted a train service after it was stopped to prevent people from trying to ride it into the U.S. Guad, good morning to you. Thanks for being with us. What do we know about this new wave of migrants, and do we have any idea of how many have crossed?
Valerie, it's difficult to know how many migrants are going to be making their way to the southern border. We know that tens of thousands are in Mexico attempting to make it to the U.S., but of course, Mexican immigration does what they can to stop them. Mexican immigration has been overwhelmed for years now. You can see just behind me the train bridge. In fact, we can hear a train that is now making its way south. This is a railway where there's a lot of trains that go from the U.S. into Mexico and vice versa, from Mexico into the U.S. A lot of trade, a lot of commerce that's quite important. In fact, the CEO of Union Pacific came to the area earlier this week to talk to us about how important it was to get these trains moving. The Mexican company that operates the trains on the Mexican side had said that they had an unprecedented number of migrants riding the trains, and because of the dangers, they had decided to halt them. Over the weekend, we saw the crossings pick up again. We saw groups of hundreds arrive here yesterday, many of them telling me that they were on the newest train, the last train that arrived in Piedras Negras, Mexico, and it was about 100 degrees here. So you can imagine they ride the train and then they walk in that sun, many of them getting stuck behind the razor wire that you can see here. In fact, immigration had to make a decision to cut some of that wire to rescue some of those migrants, including children, Valerie.
Well, you kind of mentioned what the situation is like right now. People are still coming in, starting to ride that train again. Are officials worried that the number of migrants may increase again now that that train service has been restored? What are they telling you?
Valerie, they are. So CBP, Customs and Border Protection, had decided to shut down the bridge behind me. When I spoke to the CEO of Union Pacific, he said it was the government's decision not to let the trains go through into the United States, whereas in Mexico, it was the private company that halted the trains. They've now decided to allow these trains to move forward. Of course, it's a difficult decision because when you operate the trains, you have groups of hundreds on these trains. I asked the migrants what it's like in other parts of Mexico. Many of them communicate with other migrants through their phones using WhatsApp, and they tell me that thousands are still waiting in different parts of Mexico to hitchhike on some of these trains that make their way north. This is just one of those cities you go past. More trains go to El Paso and other border cities, Valerie.
So, Guad, how are officials handling the people who are already waiting at the border? Where are they being sent?
So migrants will cross here, they will turn themselves in to Border Patrol, and then they're taken to CBP processing centers. This is where they begin that asylum-seeking process. If they are allowed to remain in the United States with that parole that they are given, then they are released, and they go to these help centers or resource centers where they help them with bus passes. Sometimes they help them communicate with people they know in the U.S., or they get shelter for a day or two. That's where the local communities are using resources to help the migrants make their way through. And in other cases, in cities like New York, the migrants arrive, so the cities need additional funding because it's costing them more money to provide services for this influx of migrants that are coming to these cities. That's why DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas called on Congress over the weekend to approve additional funding to use for this new influx. And I should also say, once again, he called for immigration reform, Valerie.
Guad, we know it's a situation that's changing day by day. We appreciate you being there at the border for us. Thank you so much. International headlines now, and another weekend of violence in the West Bank. Claudio Lavanga joins us now from Rome with that and more. Claudio, good morning to you.
Good morning, guys. Yes, let's start in Gaza, where the Israeli military says struck militant sites for a third day in a row after Palestinian militants launched incendiary balloons across the border into Israel. Now, the strike happened soon after an Israeli military raid in the northern West Bank, where Palestinian officials said 2 Palestinians were killed. Now we come back here in Italy, where news agency ANSA reports that Italian mafia boss Matteo Messina Denaro has died. The 61-year-old spent 30 years on the run before being detained in January. He was being treated for cancer at the time of his arrest and was moved from a prison to a hospital last month. As a boss of the notorious Cosa Nostra mafia, Denaro was convicted of numerous crimes, including for his role in the planning of the 1992 murders of 2 anti-mafia prosecutors. And we end up our tour of the world in Berlin with a record-breaking run. Ethiopian runner Tigist Assefa shattered the women's marathon world record, shaving more than 2 minutes off the previous best. The result will almost certainly guarantee the 26-year-old a place in the Ethiopian Olympic team. And if smashing a world record by 2 minutes doesn't get you in an Olympic team, I don't know what does. Back to you.
I don't know either. 2 minutes is quite a bit. Claudio, thank you so much. From international news to space news now, and a historic moment for NASA yesterday. A capsule containing the largest asteroid sample ever collected hit Earth, landing in the Utah desert. The entire mission took 7 years. The spacecraft carrying those samples traveling a total of about 4 billion miles. And now scientists hope these samples could teach us about the origins of life on Earth. Joining us now for more on this is Professor Jana Levin. She is an astrophysicist, professor, and author of the book Black Hole Survival Guide. Professor, good morning. Thanks for being with us today. Let's talk about why this is such a milestone. What do scientists hope to learn from these asteroid samples?
Well, the material in the asteroids, we think, is largely preserved from a very early era in the solar system's history. So 4.5 billion years ago, when the solar system was first forming. And so it's giving us insight into some of the original chemicals and composition of the early solar system. That's interesting for us because a lot of the material on the Earth from that early period has been obliterated. There's erosion, there's weather, there's plate tectonics and volcanic activity. And so we're really trying to get a glimpse back into the earliest phase. And it might also have keys for the formation of life on Earth. We don't know if life might have come to us, or some of the amino acids which launched the era of the radiation of life across the Earth might have come from asteroids like Bennu.
Now, we understand that the samples were collected from the surface of that asteroid called Bennu that you just mentioned, which is about as tall as the Empire State Building. What is so special about this particular asteroid?
Well, there's an asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, and it's dense, but it's not that dense. We've had spacecraft make it through, and occasionally there are collisions between these big asteroids, which catapult some closer to the Earth. And Bennu was convenient because it is very close to the Earth's orbit. It's not all the way out there between Mars and Jupiter, and yet it comes from that original location, and it's spinning pretty slowly compared to some asteroids, which can be spinning very rapidly. So that gave it some appeal for us. In fact, it even crosses Earth's orbit. There's a tiny percentage that in about 160 years, it might even collide with the Earth. And it also has really important materials that we are interested in, really carbon-based, very interesting examples of maybe having minerals that are trapping water. And it can help us understand not just the emergence of life, but maybe even how the oceans formed on Earth, that they might have been seeded from asteroids and comets, planting water here.
So much to learn. So let's talk about what's next. The OSIRIS-REx is now set to investigate another asteroid called Apophis. Can you talk about this new mission and what do we know about it so far?
Yeah, when we're hearing that the sample has come back to Earth, there might be the misunderstanding that the satellite itself came back. It actually was about a third of the way to the moon when it sent the capsule to Earth, and that it jettisoned away to try to get to another asteroid, which is also not that dissimilar from Bennu, but we also learned from Japanese missions and other collections that there can be a great deal of variety on these asteroids. And so it can teach us a lot about the early solar system and how it formed and the gas and dust from which it formed. And so the mission goes on to collect more samples. We also know that meteorites make it to the surface of the Earth from outer space, but they've been exposed and contaminated, and they've had this incredibly dramatic reentry. So what we're getting is this very pristine, preserved form of these early elements.
All right, as you said, the mission goes on. Professor Jana Levin, thank you so much. Coming up, Aaron Rodgers' season-ending injury is reigniting the debate over grass versus artificial football fields. And there's new data this morning that might show a link between turf and higher rates of injuries among players. We'll break down those numbers next. And welcome back. New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers' season-ending Achilles tendon injury is now reigniting the debate over the safety of artificial turf fields in the NFL. Rodgers argued for grass all over the league last season. He said some artificial surfaces are softer, creating more wobble when the foot hits the ground, which can lead to injuries. The NFL has maintained that turf fields are just as safe as grass fields. But new data by Sports Info Solutions found that 7 of the 10 stadiums with the highest injury counts from 2017 to 2022 had artificial surfaces. So let's bring in Dr. Derek Kapanik for more on this. He is the assistant professor of the Orthopedic Surgery Division of Sports Medicine at Washington University. Dr. Kapanik, good morning. The data we just mentioned also echoes research from the NFL Players Association that found higher injury rates on artificial turf from 2015 to 2022. So why are we seeing higher injury rates on turf fields?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. So there's no doubt that if we look at the general trend in the orthopedic literature, it shows that especially for lower extremity injuries, there's higher rates of injuries occurring on athletes participating on synthetic or artificial turf surfaces when compared to natural grass. And there's really a number of factors to consider when we're looking at why these injuries are occurring. And most commonly, what we look at is really the shoe surface interface. And, basically the, recreating what's kind of what we see on natural grass isn't as readily created on the natural or on the synthetic field surfaces. The foot sometimes can get a little bit more stuck. It can create increased friction and torque. And when you're dealing with athletes at the size of the NFL players who are getting tackled, who are trying to cut and run, if that foot is getting stuck and increasing the rotational torque on the ankle and across the foot, it's going to lead to higher rates of injuries.
So in a statement, the NFL's executive vice president, Jeff Miller, had this to say about the use of artificial turf fields. Quote, the playing surface is one factor among many that contributes to the number of injuries at any stadium. Each injury sustained by players is unique, with contributing factors including injury history, the type of contact on the play, a player's pose or movements, cleat type, and more. So is there anything that athletes who are playing on turf can do to prevent some of these injuries?
So one of the things that we've really started to look at is basically, making sure that the players have the right equipment. And especially for, the issue we're talking about with the turf is making sure that they have the right shoe wear. Obviously, less of an issue for our professional athletes than when compared to some of our collegiate and high school athletes. But appropriate shoe wear is absolutely critical. And we've also been seeing more data coming out looking at the configuration of the cleats. And as these can potentially increase the shear force across the foot and the ankle while playing on synthetic surfaces, ensure that they have the right equipment is absolutely essential to minimize the risk of further injury, whether it's occurring on natural or artificial grass surfaces.
All right, so many factors at play here. Dr. Derek Kapanik, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. As New York, Paris, and Milan all hold their fashion weeks, the industry continues to face criticisms about the huge amount of waste it generates, with 92 million tons of clothes ending up in landfills each year. NBC News Now anchor Gotti Schwartz talked to one visionary designer with a 3D printing solution.
They call it fast fashion for a reason. It's an industry that's never moved at such a rapid-fire pace. Styles changing at the speed of a TikTok trend. The demand of one-day delivery, the promise of a free return. It's consumerism at its apex and a far cry from the days of owning one perfectly tailored suit worn down to the threads.
I used to go to a dressmaker or like a seamstress or a tailor, and they would create something custom for you, and then you would keep it. It's gone from that to mass consumption, and I think there's a tipping point.
And while the endless options on what to wear might be surprisingly cheap sometimes, fast fashion has come at a cost. With a global supply chain crisscrossing to markets around the world, the fashion industry is now the third biggest polluter on Earth, responsible for 10% of all global carbon emissions. Here, mountains of garments and unused fabrics thrown away to landfills and forgotten about.
When you come across images showing like mountains and mountains of clothing being buried or being landfilled in other countries, what do you see in that?
I see first world countries offshoring their guilt to third world countries.
And he should know, Garrett Gerson was a rising star in the fashion world. Literally, he even appeared on NBC's reality show Fashion Star, and he traveled the world with his collections.
Do you think we're gonna win?
Oh, for sure.
And then he came across this snag in the business model that was impossible to ignore.
I watched a documentary called The True Cost. It was like a big eye-opener for me. We're environmentalists at heart. We're here to be stewards of the land, and I'm doing the exact opposite.
Each year, about $500 billion is lost in unused clothing ending up in landfills.
I thought, it's not sustainable.
So he started to redesign fashion for the 21st century, one that's not so much about sewing as it is about writing computer code. And today, nestled in the Malibu Mountains in a converted old horse barn, Variant 3D is weaving future tech into the industry.
I want to be able to 3D print clothing, products, textiles, with zero waste, using sustainable fibers. I want to do it locally.
With digital scans, his team has developed software that they say will soon allow anyone to design their own wardrobe, email it to a local clothing 3D printer with your exact measurements, and voila.
I keep checking to see the size. I'm like, what size is this?
No,
there are
the
no
size.
sizes.
Yeah, it'll be your size, and as it should be, right? Like, and that's what the future looks like, and that future's not far away.
This is the ranchwear of the future right here. You can't feel this because it's TV, but the stretch and the feel, like this is what I always imagined like the Jetsons were wearing. So you're not just talking about printing clothing for the masses. You're talking about printing clothing for the individual.
Yeah, the individual at mass.
But how realistic could this be for the average consumer?
Probably in 10 years' time, we should probably all have one of these printers in our home, so we'll be able to do this ourselves.
Like for everybody, or
for
just
everybody.
for the people that have like millions of dollars?
No, for everybody. No, I think this will be as cheap or as affordable as a 3D printer.
You buy your own clothing.
Yep. Your own clothing, your own shoes, recovering your own furniture.
I'm going to hold you to this promise.
A software solution to mass pollution, sketching a digital pattern for the future of fashion.
Our thanks to Gotti Schwartz for that report.
Coming up, a new challenge for billionaire entrepreneur Richard Branson with global implications.
Why he's now setting his sights on climate change. We'll bring you that one-on-one conversation after this.
We're back now with some financial headlines. Rite Aid is reportedly considering closing hundreds of its stores.
CNBC's Pippa Stevens joins us now with that and other news. Good morning, Pippa.
Good morning. Well, drugstore chain Rite Aid is negotiating with creditors over the terms of a bankruptcy plan that would include liquidating a substantial portion of its more than 2,100 drugstores, according to people familiar with the talks. Rite Aid has proposed to close roughly 400 to 500 stores in bankruptcy and either sell or let creditors take over its remaining operations. The pharmacy chain operates more than 2,300 stores in 17 U.S. states. Amazon is betting big bucks on AI. The e-commerce giant announced today that it will invest $4 billion in artificial intelligence firm Anthropic and take a minority ownership position in the company. The move underscores Amazon's aggressive AI push as it looks to keep pace with rivals such as Microsoft and Alphabet's Google. Anthropic was founded roughly 2 years ago by former OpenAI research executives and recently debuted its new AI chatbot called Cloud 2. And Meta is preparing to announce a new AI chatbot aimed at attracting younger users. The bots are meant to be used as a means to drive engagement with users, although some of them might also have productivity-related skills, such as the ability to help with coding or other tasks. Valerie and Joe, back to you.
All right, Pippa Stevens, thank you so much. Well, he's been an entrepreneur for over 50 years, but that hasn't stopped Richard Branson taking on a new challenge, climate change. NBC News correspondent Chloe Malas sat down for an in-depth conversation with the billionaire to discuss the new initiative, as well as the war in Ukraine and his plans to return to space.
Thank you very much.
Sir Richard Branson's next mission, combating climate change.
Life-threatening heat waves followed by flooding that displaced 33 million people.
I sat down with the billionaire British entrepreneur to discuss his latest initiative. It's called Planetary Guardians, a coalition featuring 14 world leaders to take what they're calling a whole planet approach to safeguard the Earth.
If you can't measure something properly, you can't fix it. The idea is that we will measure the 9 principal planetary boundaries every year. You know, how many are the rainforests? Are we cutting down more? You know, exactly where we are with climate change, exactly where we are with species disappearing in the world. And we can try to make sure we can push the world into trying to address them.
The diverse group features individuals like actor Robert Redford, activist Jane Goodall, and former president of Colombia, Juan Manuel Santos. He also had a message to the climate change deniers.
You just got to listen to the scientists. It's a fact of life. The amount of carbon that's going into the Earth's atmosphere is heating up the world, and it's going to do a lot of damage to the world if we don't get it under control. It's not only sorting out today's problem, but it's giving our grandchildren a utopian world for the future.
Branson is also turning his focus to the war in Ukraine. He was appointed last spring by President Vladimir Zelensky to lead fundraising efforts to rebuild the war-torn country.
We can't allow countries in this day and age to take over the territory of other people's countries, and they're dying for the freedom of all of us. And the least we can do is make sure that we help them and in every way we can.
As the country continues to get pummeled by Putin's troops, he says there's no sign of a conflict ending.
Do you see an end in sight for the war?
I don't think we can expect an early end to the war, and the war will not end until Ukrainians manage to get their sovereign territory back.
And a message for Elon Musk.
You know, it makes me think about everything that happened with Starlink and Elon Musk, and, some people saying that it's dangerous for, a billionaire entrepreneur to almost be an arbiter of war. Do you have thoughts on that?
I think war should be handled by governments. European governments and the American government are firmly committed to make sure that this war is won and that we give Ukraine all the help we can get. I would also say if individuals are in a position to be able to help win this war, they should do everything they can to help win this war.
A man of many hats, Branson founded Virgin Group in the 1970s. It now consists of over 400 companies, like his airline, iconic record label, and he's also sending people to space with Virgin Galactic, which launched its first commercial shuttle in the summer.
Do you believe, though, that in our lifetime, anyone who wants to go will be able to pay for it and affordably go to space?
In your lifetime, yes. If I have to hurry up and develop a Virgin Life pill, so it can be in my lifetime too. We are building a fleet of spaceships. So we've managed to get the price of going into space from a carbon point of view right down to a minimum.
So are you saying, though, that you all are reducing or are cognizant of reducing Virgin Galactic's carbon footprint, given everything that you're also doing to combat climate change?
I think we've got to do, if you run an airline, you've got to try to get the youngest, most fuel-efficient planes. If you're running a space line, you've got to reduce the cost of taking people into space dramatically from a carbon point of view. All of us in positions where we can make a big difference have got to make a big difference. But my trip to space was definitely the best day of my life.
Will you ever do it again?
I booked it for my 80th, 90th and 100th birthday, and I'm an optimist, so my 110th as well.
110th birthday space flight. Okay.
He needs that Virgin Life pill he's talking about. He needs to make that.
Our thanks to Chloe Melas for that interview. Good morning. I'm Valerie Castro in for Savannah Sellers.
And I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, it's a deal. Hollywood writers and major media companies announcing a possible breakthrough in contract negotiations. Both sides have reached a tentative agreement that could restart production on some of your favorite shows nearly 150 days after writers walked off the job. With more details on that potential deal and the latest on the ongoing actors' strike. Plus, Ophelia's wrath. Several states across the Northeast getting pounded by heavy rain, strong winds, and flooding over the weekend. Well, the storm has moved off the coast. It looks like the wet weather is sticking around this morning. We'll have your forecast coming up. Also this morning, against the clock. Congress has just 5 days left to pass a spending bill to avoid a government shutdown. House Speaker McCarthy optimistic they can get the job done, but there's been little progress thanks to a small group of far-right hardliners. Now McCarthy calling for unity within his party.
They want to walk you into a shutdown, then blame you for the shutdown. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
This morning, more on where negotiations stand and what a government shutdown could mean for you. And out of this world, NASA celebrating a historic moment 7 years in the making yesterday. A capsule containing the largest asteroid sample ever collected landed in the Utah desert. What scientists hope these samples could teach us about life on Earth. Some exciting space news to bring you there. We are going to begin this hour with the tentative deal reached between Hollywood writers and major media companies.
The months-long work stoppage shut down much of Hollywood, but now the end could be in sight. NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Melas joins us now with the latest.
Hey there. After nearly 5 months on the picket line and marathon negotiations over the weekend, the Writers Guild of America says they have an agreement in principle. This is a major step in getting new episodes of your favorite shows back on the air. Overnight, the writers' strike reaching its final act. The WGA agreeing to a tentative 3-year deal with the AMPTP, which represents streamers and studios, including NBC Universal's parent company, Comcast. It comes nearly 150 days after film and TV writers walked out on Hollywood and hit the picket lines. While specifics are not yet known, the deal likely promises higher residuals from streaming, higher wages, and protections against AI. In an email to members, the WGA is saying, though we are eager to share the details of what has been achieved with you, we cannot do that until the last I is dotted.
From day one, we've been hopeful that a deal will be reached because, they're our partners and we love making television with them.
Still, writers will not return to work just yet as they wait for a final contract to be drafted and voted on by members. The union instead encouraging writers to join the actors who remain on strike, meaning it could take weeks or even months for Hollywood to see a full reboot.
No one wants to cross the picket lines.
Writers and actors taking to social media overnight to express their relief, including Michael Shea of Saturday Night Live writing, "I guess we back," and actress Mindy Kaling posting, "Can't wait to go back to work and see my people."
Welcome, everybody.
While daytime and late-night talk shows will likely be the first to be back on air, experts say the summer stoppage in TV production means new episodes of hit scripted shows may not return until next year, replaced this fall with reruns and reality TV. The Hollywood shutdown having big effects on the big screen, too. Studios already pushing back some major movie releases to 2024, including blockbuster sequels like Mission Impossible, Dune, and Gladiator.
Is this not why you were here?
Now with the writers reaching a deal, Hollywood is one step closer to being back in action.
So this tentative deal basically means that it's now up to the lawyers to hammer out the final language of the contract. And then the rank and file union members, they have to vote to approve it. But it can't come soon enough for the Hollywood industry. Experts say that the dual strikes have cost L.A. an estimated $5 billion in lost revenue and wages. Back to you. All right, Chloe Malas, thanks so much.
Millions of people up and down the East Coast were pounded by Tropical Storm Ophelia over the weekend. The storm unleashed heavy rain and damaging flooding from North Carolina to New Hampshire. NBC News correspondent Emily Aketa joins us now from Jones Beach, New York, with more on that. Emily, good morning.
Hey there, Joe. Well, we are seeing some relief, but you can see behind me there is still winds and rains impacting the area, especially making that morning commute quite messy. We saw the impacts of Ophelia sweep up the eastern seaboard, knocking out power to thousands, dumping nearly 9 inches of rain on some states, including parts of North Carolina, and churning up dangerous ocean conditions, including here at Jones Beach, where rip currents remain a concern.
This morning, millions are cleaning up and drying out from a weekend of relentless wind and rain.
This is rough, I'm telling you.
As Tropical Storm Ophelia churned up the East Coast.
This is the worst weather we've ever had.
Sparking widespread flooding, downing power lines and trees, and drenching plans for the first weekend of fall. Ophelia first made landfall Saturday in North Carolina, packing 70-mile-per-hour winds. The storm dumping several inches of rain and damaging homes and businesses.
So it did come, you're talking right up to here?
The flooding triggered multiple water rescues, like the U.S. Coast Guard's rescue of 5 people, including 3 children, on a ship in Cape Lookout. States of emergency declared in North Carolina, as well as Virginia and Maryland. The storm then pushing its way inland.
This is pretty bad.
In one Pennsylvania neighborhood, those storm conditions toppled trees, potentially sparking an explosion and 2-alarm fire, forcing the evacuation of more than 100 residents from their homes. Ophelia later downgraded to a post-tropical cyclone, but still posing a threat.
So right now the tide is receding here at Jones Beach, but authorities are warning that when those water levels begin to increase again later today, that is when residents could see some more coastal flooding. And as Ophelia continues to crawl northward, we could see some lingering travel impacts. Over the weekend, we saw more than 10,000 flights that were delayed and several hundred canceled. Joe?
All right, Emily, thank you so much.
Let's check in on what to expect this week with your Morning News Now weather forecast.
Meteorologist Michelle Grossman is back with us. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, guys. And we're going to see Ophelia, the remnants of Ophelia, affecting us not only today, but also tomorrow, finally clearing out on Wednesday. We're going to see that sunshine returning. But we still have a lot to deal with in terms of the rain falling. We have heavy rain bands falling. Where you see the reds, yellows, oranges, that's where the heaviest rain is falling. But this rain shield is large. It's been large since the beginning of this storm, and we're continuing to see the rainfall rainfall throughout portions of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic into parts of New England. And that's going to be the story as we go throughout today. Also on Tuesday, a little more rainfall. And then Wednesday, we're going to start to really clear it out. So for today, periods of rain continuing throughout the day. Also talking about gale warnings. Emily sort of talked about this. Gale warnings, also some coastal flooding, minor coastal flooding, because we have the winds kind of pushing this on shore. It's still really breezy. It's a raw day out there. A good indoor day. It was a good indoor weekend. We're going to see that once again today. Here's the rainfall we're expecting. Not a whole lot. Another quarter inch, half inch of some rain. So we're looking at nuisance flooding. There's areas that you're used to along the Jersey Shore, Long Island, where you see that flooding. We're going to see that once again today. So if you do, or if you're prone to flooding in those areas, you want to move your car back. Otherwise, we're also looking at some heavy rain falling in portions of the southeast, specifically in Florida, especially Tuesday into Wednesday. We're going to see that moisture really increasing from the Gulf and the Caribbean, and that's going to bring hourly rainfall rates of 2 to 3 inches per hour. Those really summer-like downpours where you see those darker colors showing us that we could see those downpours, and that's going to continue on Wednesday as well. That's going to lead to the chance for some flooding each day, not only today, but Tuesday, also Wednesday, because we're going to see those repeat rounds of rain. This is a stationary front, so it kind of just rides along that stationary front. This is what we're talking about in terms of the rainfall, 1, 2, even 3 inches of rain, especially with the reds. We're looking at Jacksonville, Daytona Beach, Melbourne, Tampa, Fort Myers, Miami, looking at the chance for some really heavy rain over the next few days. That's not the only spot. Also, back to the northwest, we're looking at an atmospheric river. That brings a lot of rain. It brings a lot of wind as well. So we're going to see this today. And also tomorrow. It was a wet day yesterday as well. This is what radar looks like right now. The green is the lighter rain, but the yellows, we're seeing some heavier rain. And we could see 2 to 3 inches of rain as we go throughout the next couple of days. So it's a big upper area of low pressure, kind of moving this atmospheric river on shore. Lots of moisture to work with from the Pacific, and also those really strong winds pushing that water on shore. So this rain is going to extend all the way to parts of Washington, into Oregon, into Northern California, places like Seattle, Portland, Eugene, Medford. Kind of just a miserable day today and also tomorrow. Another spot expecting some showers, even some really strong to severe thunderstorms, would be in the deep south. So Houston, Victoria, Del Rio, we're looking at the chance for winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour. Damaging hail will be on the small side, about an inch or so. The tornado threat is low, but it's not zero, especially as we get that daytime heating going. So that's going to be one spot. We talked about Florida also with that stationary front. Could see some strong storms throughout the afternoon as well. Tomorrow, we'll see the chance for those storms into portions of New Mexico. So Roswell, same sort of scenario. Winds gusting to 60 miles per hour, the chance for hail, also a low risk for tornadoes. And then we're looking at the Missouri Valley. St. Louis could see some strong to severe storms as we go throughout Tuesday. So that's the story there. Then we're looking at the chance for some really warm temperatures in the southwest into the triple digits, into parts like in Arizona, Phoenix, sunny and warm throughout the middle of the country. There's that rain also in portions of the upper Midwest. Not expecting strong storms, could see a few thunderstorms, but we're going to see some scattered storms, some scattered showers there as we go throughout this Monday. Back to you both.
All right, Michelle, thank you so much.
United Auto Workers union leaders say they're one step closer to reaching a deal with Ford, but the same can't be said for General Motors or Stellantis.
The disagreement with 2 of the 3 big 3 automakers led to new walkouts across 38 different locations late last week. The union says both companies are, quote, going to need some serious pushing.
NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch joins us now from Pontiac, Michigan with the details. Jesse, good morning to you. Union leaders say Ford has made a good amount of progress in contract negotiations, unlike Stellantis and General Motors. So walk us through the difference here. Where has Ford made progress, and what is the union looking for from the other 2 companies?
Yeah, Valerie and Joe, good morning. So the union has had the same list of demands, largely, at least publicly, that it's been pushing on all of these companies. And what the union did on Friday was it announced the expansion of the strike against GM and Stellantis. And it said at the same time, because they'd seen, quote, real progress from Ford, they were not going to be expanding against that company for the time being. And when they made this announcement, the union highlighted a couple different things. Among them, progress they saw from Ford on things like cost of living adjustments and the right to strike over plant closures. So those were a couple things they talked about. They also talked about elimination of a wage tier. This is something that's been out there and talked about throughout this strike, is this idea that there's some workers who make more than others at the various plants at the various companies. And so the union has been pushing to eliminate those wage tiers and have everyone be making the same pay. So that's part of what we heard from the union on Friday. The company Ford, for its part, says that there's still more work to be done. So no agreement yet, no deals with any of the big three, as far as we have been told at this point, but clearly a distinction now between Ford and the other two companies.
So, Jesse, while the strike continues, we're also seeing layoffs continue at dozens of factories. What's the impact that's had?
Yeah, so, Joe, we've heard of some layoffs as a result of the strike from non-striking workers, but the bigger thing right now is the expansion of striking workers. Thousands more were told to walk off the job on Friday, but we're still looking at just around a tenth of the total UAW workforce that works at these big three automakers. So there's still a lot more potential for this strike to grow. As far as the impact we're seeing, what could be coming in the days ahead now is an impact to consumers at home. People watching this who don't know anyone who works at a UAW or at a big three automaker, who doesn't know anyone who's a UAW member, this could still wind up hitting you in the days ahead because these are parts distribution facilities that are now being hit. So if you need to get your car repaired, depending on what part you need, that's going to become more complicated potentially in the days ahead. One dealership group telling me, for example, that stuff like brake pads, they high demand parts they've been stocking up on, but something like an engine, that could be trickier to find soon.
And Jesse, both President Biden and former President Trump are each expected to travel to Michigan to join the auto workers on the picket line. What do we know about their visits?
Yeah, so President Biden says he will be joining the picket line in Michigan tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, we're expecting former President Donald Trump to make a speech to workers in this state, bringing the 2024 spotlight here. And there is tension, obviously, between the two sides on what they would make their pitch to these voters about. And I can tell you that one thing we'll be watching closely for is the messaging around electric vehicles. That's something that President Biden has made a big push for, but there's concern among auto workers that could eliminate jobs, and EVs and the consequences of that, potential consequences of that, is something that former President Trump has already been highlighting. Guys.
All right, Jesse Kirsch, thanks so much.
Negotiations over the future of government spending bill remain stalled after House Republicans failed to make progress over the weekend. Congress now has just 6 days to find a solution here. If they fail, the government is set to shut down on Sunday. It's leaving thousands of federal workers at risk of being furloughed. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles joins us now for the latest. So, Ryan, walk us through how negotiations unfolded among House Republicans over the weekend. Are we any closer to any kind of deal here?
Well, they talked a lot, Joe, but they didn't seem to make a whole heck of a lot of progress. And the problem here is that even if Republicans do end up coming up with a deal within their own conference, that deal will still never become law because Democrats in the Senate and, of course, President Joe Biden wouldn't sign that type of bill into law. And so we're basically just running out of time to kind of run through all these traps that are necessary to try and find some sort of an agreement. And it's not exactly clear how this is going to end, and if a shutdown happens, how the Congress will end up getting out of that shutdown. Now, Congress is not in session today because of the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur, so we don't expect them to really get back to the bargaining table until tomorrow. So they are just running out of time, as you rightly point out. The government set to shut down this weekend.
So, Ryan, Speaker McCarthy has acknowledged he may need to turn to Democrats for help. First of all, what kind of consequences would a move like that have, especially for him? And then is there any room here for McCarthy to find a way to compromise with those Republican holdouts?
Well, Joe, Kevin McCarthy acknowledging what we've all known, that there is no way that the government is going to stay open unless there is some sort of bipartisan proposal that's put on the table that has both Republicans and Democrats. But McCarthy, up until this point, has been insistent to try and at least attempt to pass something out of the House of Representatives with only Republicans, if not to only demonstrate to the conservatives in his caucus that they're not going to be able to pass some sort of hard right legislation. Listen to what McCarthy said about these negotiations over the weekend.
Unfortunately, I know Matt Gaetz said he and 7 others wouldn't allow that to happen. So if you can't allow that to happen, we have to have some from the other side of the aisle to vote with us to be able to keep government open. And if they wouldn't vote to bring the bills up, I'm not quite sure what they want.
But to your point, Joe, this could endanger his speakership. Those same group of conservatives, that same group of conservatives that have been the ones holding up the progress on this government spending bill are the same ones who have said that if he works with Democrats to pass something, then they're going to institute what's called a motion to vacate, which could then lead to a vote that puts his speakership in danger. It's a very tight rope that Kevin McCarthy is attempting to walk here, and the sum total of it may end up being that the government shuts down this weekend.
Yeah, let's talk about the impact of that. It would have serious consequences for government workers. This could be different, though, from what we've seen in the past, especially for military workers. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, and this is a sign, Joe, of just how they cannot agree on anything. In the past, they've at least been able to pass some sort of provision that would allow government workers like military members or essential personnel to remain getting paid while the shutdown kind of goes through that process and they come up with some sort of negotiation. That's not the case this time around. They've not passed anything as it relates to spending. So that means millions of federal workers could be impacted by this, including members of the military could go without pay for an extended period of time. And there are many members of the military that live paycheck to paycheck. We could see them in a situation where they need to go to food banks in order to continue to feed their families and make ends meet. This is a serious situation that's going to impact millions of Americans because in addition to the federal government workers that get direct paychecks from the government, there's also a whole host of people that are employed by private companies that do business with the government. They also will lose their paychecks and likely will not receive back pay if the government does end up shutting down for an extended period of time.
We're going to dig a little deeper into that right now. Ryan Nobles, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Now to a closer look at the effect the looming crisis could have on federal families. Federal workers are now bracing for missed paychecks as Congress moves toward a potential government shutdown. If Congress doesn't reach a deal by September 30th, millions of government employees will go without pay.
So let's bring in NBC News senior policy reporter Shannon Pettypiece for more on this. Shannon, Ryan was talking a little bit about it there, but break down the full effect the shutdown is going to have on federal employees. Just how many federal civilian workers will be impacted?
Well, by some estimate, it could be around 4 million workers who start missing their paycheck if there isn't some action by Congress in the coming days. We're talking about people like TSA agents and air traffic controllers at the airports, Border Patrol agents. Ryan mentioned members of the military, but just also people working in their local Social Security office, processing checks. You see that map up on the screen there. That shows the widespread nature of the federal workforce. You know, and while a lot of it isn't concentrated in Washington, D.C., we're talking about people in states like Texas, Ohio, Pennsylvania, all states that have big shares of federal workers who could be impacted here. So this shutdown could be felt very deep for a lot of communities. And if it goes on for more than a few weeks, the effects really could be widespread across the country.
Shannon, the shutdown comes at a time when families are already struggling to deal with rising costs from inflation. So how are families planning to cope?
Well, I heard about a lot of anxiety from federal workers talking about things like canceling vacations, having to rely on friends and family, maybe having to go to their local food bank. To have a listen to what just a couple workers had to tell me.
It's bare bones. Folks have to rely on their, extended families, or they have to rely on their places of worship. For things like this, and even sometimes soup kitchens. And I know that to a lot of folks that might sound extreme, but it is true.
A lot of us are just single parents like myself that struggle to make ends meet already. So we will be going to the food banks. You will see federal workers who are required to work and ones that are furloughed during a shutdown that are not getting paid, going into the food bank.
And in Washington, D.C., at the Capital Area Food Bank, where I'm at here today, they estimate there's about 100,000 federal employees who could struggle to pay for food, who will need to rely on assistance from food banks potentially. And that's just federal workers. And as Ryan noted, it doesn't include all these government contractors doing everything from working for federal agencies to just working in cleaning crews for some of these federal offices in Washington, D.C., or in the cafeteria. The last shutdown, the Capital Area Food Bank said that they gave out 4,000 meals a week just to federal employees.
So, Shannon, for the last 20 minutes, we've been talking about the Hollywood strike. We've been talking about the auto workers strike. Now we have a potential government shutdown. What kind of toll could that have on the economy? We've been towing this line, trying to fight inflation, avoid a recession. But could this lead to a recession?
So when I talked to past economists, they said that this shutdown, and of course we've had a number in recent years, but this one comes at a particularly precarious time for the economy because of those things you mentioned. And while unemployment is low, we do have this persistent inflation. And economists warn that if this shutdown is something that goes beyond a few weeks, if it goes more than a month, like we saw back in 2019, this is the type of thing that could put enough pressure on the economy that the growth does start to slow down and that we could potentially be tipped into a recession if we start looking at a really prolonged government shutdown.
All right, a lot of anxiety for a lot of people. Shannon Pettypiece, thanks so much. Coming up, we love a good space story here on Morning News Now. And this morning, NASA is making history once again with an asteroid sample that's truly out of this world.
But first, a breaking point at the southern border and beyond as a new surge of migrants pushes cities across the U.S. to the brink. Now the Defense Department is stepping in to try and mitigate the ongoing crisis. We're going to have more on that coming up next.
We're back with the latest on the worsening crisis on the U.S. southern border. Thousands of migrants continue crossing into the country, straining the nation's immigration system. Now the Defense Department is ramping up resources at the U.S.-Mexico border as officials try to process all of those people trying to come through. NBC News correspondent Guad Venegas is in Eagle Pass, Texas, where officials have recently restarted a train service after it was stopped to prevent people from trying to ride it into the U.S. Guad, good morning to you. Thanks for being with us. What do we know about this new wave of migrants, and do we have any idea of how many have crossed?
Valerie, it's difficult to know how many migrants are going to be making their way to the southern border. We know that tens of thousands are in Mexico attempting to make it to the U.S., but of course, Mexican immigration does what they can to stop them. Mexican immigration has been overwhelmed for years now. You can see just behind me the train bridge. In fact, we can hear a train that is now making its way south. This is a railway where there's a lot of trains that go from the U.S. into Mexico and vice versa, from Mexico into the U.S. A lot of trade, a lot of commerce that's quite important. In fact, the CEO of Union Pacific came to the area earlier this week to talk to us about how important it was to get these trains moving. The Mexican company that operates the trains on the Mexican side had said that they had an unprecedented number of migrants riding the trains, and because of the dangers, they had decided to halt them. Over the weekend, we saw the crossings pick up again. We saw groups of hundreds arrive here yesterday, many of them telling me that they were on the newest train, the last train that arrived in Piedras Negras, Mexico, and it was about 100 degrees here, so you can imagine they ride the train and then they walk in that sun, many of them getting stuck behind the razor wire that you can see here. In fact, immigration had to make a decision to cut some of that wire to rescue some of those migrants, including children, Valerie.
Guad, you kind of mentioned what the situation is like right now. People are still coming in, starting to ride that train again. Are officials worried that the number of migrants may increase again now that that train service has been restored? What are they telling you?
Valerie, they are. So CBP, Customs and Border Protection, had decided to shut down the bridge behind me. When I spoke to the CEO of Union Pacific, he said it was the government's decision not to let the trains go through into the United States, whereas in Mexico, it was the private company that halted the trains. They've now decided to allow these trains to move forward. Of course, it's a difficult decision because when you operate the trains, you have groups of hundreds on these trains. I asked the migrants what it's like in other parts of Mexico. Many of them communicate with other migrants through their phones using WhatsApp, and they tell me that thousands are still waiting in different parts of Mexico to hitchhike on some of these trains that make their way north. This is just one of those cities you go past. More trains go to El Paso and other border cities, Valerie.
So, Guad, how are officials handling the people who are already waiting at the border? Where are they being sent?
So migrants will cross here. They will turn themselves into Border Patrol, and then they're taken to CBP processing centers. This is where they begin that asylum-seeking process. If they are allowed to remain in the United States with that parole that they are given, then they are released, and they go to these help centers or resource centers where they help them with bus passes. Sometimes they help them communicate with people they know in the U.S., or they get shelter for a day or two. That's where the local communities are using resources to help the migrants make their way through. And in other cases, in cities like New York, the migrants arrive, so the cities need additional funding because it's costing them more money to provide services for this influx of migrants that are coming to these cities. That's why DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas called on Congress over the weekend to approve additional funding to use for this new influx. And I should also say, once again, he called for immigration reform. Valerie.
And Quad, we know it's a situation that's changing day by day. We appreciate you being there at the border for us. Thank you so much. International headlines now, and another weekend of violence in the West Bank. Claudio Lavanga joins us now from Rome with that and more. Claudio, good morning to you.
Good morning, guys. Yes, let's start in Gaza, where the Israeli military says struck militant sites for a third day in a row after Palestinian militants launched incendiary balloons across the border into Israel. Now, the strike happened soon after an Israeli military raid in the northern West Bank, where Palestinian officials said 2 Palestinians were killed. Now we come back here in Italy, where news agency ANSA reports that Italian mafia boss Matteo Messina Denaro has died. The 61-year-old spent 30 years on the run before being detained in January. He was being treated for cancer at the time of his arrest and was moved from a prison to a hospital last month. As a boss of the notorious Cosa Nostra mafia, Denaro was convicted of numerous crimes, including for his role in the planning of the 1992 murders of 2 anti-mafia prosecutors. And we end up our tour of the world in Berlin with a record-breaking run. Ethiopian runner Tigist Assefa shattered the women's marathon world record, shaving more than 2 minutes off the previous best. The result will almost certainly guarantee the 26-year-old a place in the Ethiopian Olympic team. And if smashing a world record by 2 minutes doesn't get you in an Olympic team, I don't know what does. Back to you.
I don't know either. 2 minutes is quite a bit. Claudio, thank you so much. From international news to space news now, and a historic moment for NASA yesterday. A capsule containing the largest asteroid sample ever collected hit Earth, landing in the Utah desert. The entire mission took 7 years. The spacecraft carrying those samples traveling a total of about 4 billion miles. And now scientists hope these samples could teach us about the origins of life on Earth. Joining us now for more on this is Professor Jana Levin. She is an astrophysicist, professor, and author of the book Black Hole Survival Guide. Professor, good morning. Thanks for being with us today. Let's talk about why this is such a milestone. What do scientists hope to learn from these asteroid samples?
Well, the material in the asteroids, we think, is largely preserved from a very early era in the solar system's history. So 4.5 billion years ago, when the solar system was first forming. And so it's giving us insight into some of the original chemicals and composition of the early solar system. That's interesting for us because a lot of the material on the Earth from that early period has been obliterated. There's erosion, there's weather, there's plate tectonics and volcanic activity. And so we're really trying to get a glimpse back into the earliest phase. And it might also have keys for the formation of life on Earth. We don't know if life might have come to us, or some of the amino acids which launched the era of the radiation of life across the Earth might have come from asteroids like Bennu.
Now, we understand that the samples were collected from the surface of that asteroid called Bennu that you just mentioned, which is about as tall as the Empire State Building. What is so special about this particular asteroid?
Well, there's an asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, and it's dense, but it's not that dense. We've had spacecraft make it through, and occasionally there are collisions between these big asteroids, which catapult some closer to the Earth. And Bennu was convenient because it is very close to the Earth's orbit. It's not all the way out there between Mars and Jupiter, and yet it comes from that original location, and it's spinning pretty slowly compared to some asteroids, which can be spinning very rapidly. So that gave it some appeal for us. In fact, it even crosses Earth's orbit. There's a tiny percentage that in about 160 years. It might even collide with the Earth. And it also has really important materials that we are interested in, really carbon-based, very interesting examples of maybe having minerals that are trapping water. And it can help us understand not just the emergence of life, but maybe even how the oceans formed on Earth, that they might have been seeded from asteroids and comets, planting water here.
So much to learn. So let's talk about what's next. The OSIRIS-REx is now set to investigate another asteroid called Apophis. Can you talk about this new mission and what do we know about it so far?
Yeah, when we're hearing that the sample has come back to Earth, there might be the misunderstanding that the satellite itself came back. It actually was about a third of the way to the moon when it sent the capsule to Earth, and that it jettisoned away to try to get to another asteroid, which is also not that dissimilar from Bennu, but we also learned from Japanese missions and other collections that there can be a great deal of variety on these asteroids. And so it can teach us a lot about the early solar system and how it formed and the gas and dust from which it formed. And so the mission goes on to collect more samples. We also know that meteorites make it to the surface of the Earth from outer space, but they've been exposed and contaminated, and they've had this incredibly dramatic reentry. So what we're getting is this very pristine, preserved form of these early elements.
All right, as you said, the mission goes on. Professor Jana Levin, thank you so much. Coming up, Aaron Rodgers' season-ending injury is reigniting the debate over grass versus artificial football fields. And there's new data this morning that might show a link between turf and higher rates of injuries among players. We'll break down those numbers next. And welcome back. New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers' season-ending Achilles tendon injury is now reigniting the debate over the safety of artificial turf fields in the NFL. Rodgers argued for grass all over the league last season. He said some artificial surfaces are softer, creating more wobble when the foot hits the ground, which can lead to injuries. The NFL has maintained that turf fields are just as safe as grass fields. But new data by Sports Info Solutions found that 7 of the 10 stadiums with the highest injury counts from 2017 to 2022 had artificial surfaces. So let's bring in Dr. Derek Kapanik for more on this. He is the assistant professor of the Orthopedic Surgery Division of Sports Medicine at Washington University. Dr. Kapanik, good morning. The data we just mentioned also echoes research from the NFL Players Association that found higher injury rates on artificial turf from 2015 to 2022. So why are we seeing higher injury rates on turf fields?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. So there's no doubt that if we look at the general trend in the orthopedic literature, it shows that especially for lower extremity injuries, there's higher rates of injuries occurring on athletes participating on synthetic or artificial turf surfaces when compared to natural grass. And there's really a number of factors to consider when we're looking at why these injuries are occurring. And most commonly, what we look at is really the shoe surface interface. And, basically the, recreating what's kind of what we see on natural grass isn't as readily created on the natural or on the synthetic field surfaces. The foot sometimes can get a little bit more stuck. It can create increased friction and torque. And when you're dealing with athletes at the size of the NFL players who are getting tackled, who are trying to cut and run, if that foot is getting stuck and increasing the rotational torque on the ankle and across the foot, it's going to lead to higher rates of injuries.
So in a statement, the NFL's executive vice president, Jeff Miller, had this to say about the use of artificial turf fields. Quote, the playing surface is one factor among many that contributes to the number of injuries at any stadium. Each injury sustained by players is unique, with contributing factors including injury history, the type of contact on the play, a player's pose or movements, cleat type, and more. So is there anything that athletes who are playing on turf can do to prevent some of these injuries?
So one of the things that we've really started to look at is basically, making sure that the players have the right equipment. And especially for, the issue we're talking about with the turf is making sure that they have the right shoe wear. Obviously, less of an issue for our professional athletes than when compared to some of our collegiate and high school athletes. But appropriate shoe wear is absolutely critical. And we've also been seeing more data coming out looking at the configuration of the cleats. And as these can potentially increase the shear force across the foot and the ankle while playing on synthetic surfaces, ensure that they have the right equipment is absolutely essential to minimize the risk of further injury, whether it's occurring on natural or artificial grass surfaces.
All right, so many factors at play here. Dr. Derek Kapanik, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. As New York, Paris, and Milan all hold their fashion weeks, the industry continues to face criticisms about the huge amount of waste it generates, with 92 million tons of clothes ending up in landfills each year. NBC News Now anchor Gotti Schwartz talked to one visionary designer with a 3D printing solution.
They call it fast fashion for a reason. It's an industry that's never moved at such a rapid-fire pace. Styles changing at the speed of a TikTok trend. The demand of one-day delivery, the promise of a free return. It's consumerism at its apex and a far cry from the days of owning one perfectly tailored suit worn down to the threads.
I used to go to a dressmaker or like a seamstress or a tailor, and they would create something custom for you, and then you would keep it. It's gone from that to mass consumption, and I think there's a tipping point.
And while the endless options on what to wear might be surprisingly cheap sometimes, fast fashion has come at a cost. With a global supply chain crisscrossing to markets around the world, the fashion industry is now the third biggest polluter on Earth, responsible for 10% of all global carbon emissions. Here, mountains of garments and unused fabrics thrown away to landfills and forgotten about.
When you come across images showing like mountains and mountains of clothing being buried or being landfilled in other countries, what do you see in that?
I see first world countries offshoring their guilt to third world countries.
And he should know, Garrett Gerson was a rising star in the fashion world. Literally. He even appeared on NBC's reality show Fashion Star, and he traveled the world with his collections.
You think we're going to win?
Oh, for sure.
And then he came across this snag in the business model that was impossible to ignore.
I watched a documentary called The True Cost. It was like a big eye-opener for me. We're environmentalists at heart. We're here to be stewards of the land, and I'm doing the exact opposite.
Each year, about $500 billion is lost in unused clothing ending up in landfills.
I thought, it's not sustainable.
So he started to redesign fashion for the 21st century, one that's not so much about sewing as it is about writing computer code. And today, nestled in the Malibu Mountains in a converted old horse barn, Variant 3D is weaving future tech into the industry.
I want to be able to 3D print clothing, products, textiles, with zero waste, using sustainable fibers. I want to do it locally.
With digital scans, his team has developed software that they say will soon allow anyone to design their own wardrobe, email it to a local clothing 3D printer with your exact measurements, and voila.
I keep checking to see the size. I'm like, what size is this?
No,
there are no
size.
sizes.
Yeah, it'll be your size, and as it should be, right? And that's what the future looks like, and that future's not far away.
This is the ranchwear of the future right here. You can't feel this because it's TV, but the stretch and the feel, like this is what I always imagined like the Jetsons were wearing. So you're not just talking about printing clothing for the masses. You're talking about printing clothing for the individual.
Yeah, the individual at mass.
But how realistic could this be for the average consumer?
Probably in 10 years' time, we should probably all have one of these printers in our home, so we'll be able to do this ourselves.
Like for everybody, or
for
just
everybody.
for the people that have like millions of dollars?
No, for everybody. No, I think this will be as cheap, right, or as affordable as a 3D printer.
You buy your own clothing.
Yep. Your own clothing, your own shoes, recovering your own furniture.
I'm going to hold you to this promise.
A software solution to mass pollution, sketching a digital pattern for the future of fashion.
Our thanks to Gotti Schwartz for that report.
Coming up, a new challenge for billionaire entrepreneur Richard Branson with global implications.
Why he's now setting his sights on climate change. We'll bring you that one-on-one conversation after this.
We're back now with some financial headlines. Rite Aid is reportedly considering closing hundreds of its stores.
CNBC's Pippa Stevens joins us now with that and other news. Good morning, Pippa.
Good morning. Well, drugstore chain Rite Aid is negotiating with creditors over the terms of a bankruptcy plan that would include liquidating a substantial portion of its more than 2,100 drugstores, according to people familiar with the talks. Rite Aid has proposed to close roughly 400 to 500 stores in bankruptcy and either sell or let creditors take over its remaining operations. The pharmacy chain operates more than 2,300 stores in 17 U.S. states. Amazon is betting big bucks on AI. The e-commerce giant announced today that it will invest $4 billion in artificial intelligence firm Anthropic and take a minority ownership position in the company. The move underscores Amazon's aggressive AI push as it looks to keep pace with rivals such as Microsoft and Alphabet's Google. Anthropic was founded roughly 2 years ago by former OpenAI research executives and recently debuted its new AI chatbot called Cloud 2. And Meta is preparing to announce a new AI chatbot aimed at attracting younger users. The bots are meant to be used as a means to drive engagement with users, although some of them might also have productivity-related skills, such as the ability to help with coding or other tasks. Valerie and Joe, back to you.
All right, Pippa Stevens, thank you so much. Well, he's been an entrepreneur for over 50 years, but that hasn't stopped Richard Branson taking on a new challenge, climate change. NBC News correspondent Chloe Melas sat down for an in-depth conversation with the billionaire to discuss the new initiative, as well as the war in Ukraine and his plans to return to space.
Thank you very much.
Sir Richard Branson's next mission, combating climate change.
Life-threatening heat waves followed by flooding that displaced 33 million people.
I sat down with the billionaire British entrepreneur to discuss his latest initiative. It's called Planetary Guardians, a coalition featuring 14 world leaders to take what they're calling a whole planet approach to safeguard the Earth.
If you can't measure something properly, you can't fix it. The idea is that we will measure the 9 principal planetary boundaries every year. You know, how many are the rainforests? Are we cutting down more? You know, exactly where we are with climate change, exactly where we are with species disappearing in the world. And we can try to make sure we can push the world into trying to address them.
The diverse group features individuals like actor Robert Redford, activist Jane Goodall, and former president of Colombia, Juan Manuel Santos. He also had a message to the climate change deniers.
You just got to listen to the scientists. It's a fact of life. The amount of carbon that's going into the Earth's atmosphere is heating up the world, and it's going to do a lot of damage to the world if we don't get it under control. It's not only sorting out today's problem, but it's giving our grandchildren a utopian world for the future.
Branson is also turning his focus to the war in Ukraine. He was appointed last spring by President Vladimir Zelensky to lead fundraising efforts to rebuild the war-torn country.
We can't allow countries in this day and age to take over the territory of other people's countries, and they're dying for the freedom of all of us. And the least we can do is make sure that we help them and in every way we can.
As the country continues to get pummeled by Putin's troops, he says there's no sign of a conflict ending.
Do you see an end in sight for the war?
I don't think we can expect an early end to the war, and the war will not end until Ukrainians manage to get their sovereign territory back.
And a message for Elon Musk.
You know, it makes me think about everything that happened with Starlink and Elon Musk, and, you know, some people saying that it's dangerous for, a billionaire entrepreneur to almost be an arbiter of war. Do you have thoughts on that?
I think war should be handled by governments. European governments and the American government are firmly committed to make sure that this war is won and that we give Ukraine all the help we can get. I would also say if individuals are in a position to be able to help win this war, they should do everything they can to help win this war.
A man of many hats, Branson founded Virgin Group in the 1970s. It now consists of over 400 companies, like his airline, iconic record label, and he's also sending people to space with Virgin Galactic, which launched its first commercial shuttle in the summer.
Do you believe, though, that in our lifetime, anyone who wants to go will be able to pay for it and affordably go to space?
In your lifetime, yes. If I have to hurry up and develop a Virgin Life pill, so it can be in my lifetime too. We are building a fleet of spaceships. So we've managed to get the price of going into space from a carbon point of view right down to a minimum.
So are you saying, though, that you all are reducing or are cognizant of reducing Virgin Galactic's carbon footprint, given everything that you're also doing to combat climate change?
I think we've got to do, if you run an airline, you've got to try to get the youngest, most fuel-efficient planes. If you're running a space line, you've got to reduce the cost of taking people into space dramatically from a carbon point of view. All of us in positions where we can make a big difference, so we've got to make a big difference. But my trip to space was definitely the best day of my life.
Will you ever do it again?
I booked it for my 80th, 90th and 100th birthday, and I'm an optimist, so my 110th as well.
110th birthday space flight.
He needs that Virgin Life pill he's talking about. He needs to make that.
Our thanks to Chloe Malas for that interview. Coming up is Taylor Swift's own love story heading for the end zone.
Well, her appearance at the Chiefs game yesterday fueling rumors of a possible romance with Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce. We've got all the juicy details up next. In case you haven't heard, Taylor Swift watched the Kansas City Chiefs game in person at Arrowhead Stadium on Sunday, adding fuel to those rumors that she just might be dating star tight end Travis Kelce. The singer was seen in a red and white Chiefs jacket, standing and sitting next to Kelce's mom, Donna, in a suite at Arrowhead Stadium, and later leaving with the two-time Super Bowl champ. Rumors have been swirling since July after Kelce said on a podcast that he unsuccessfully tried to give the singer a friendship bracelet with his phone number on it after her show. Clearly, they've found a way to connect since then.
I was going to say.
And I mean, Taylor gave a chest bump to the guy next to her after Travis scored a touchdown. There's a lot going on here.
She was hyped. Her reaction in that box, she was so excited. It was great.
She was very excited. Now suddenly Swift fans everywhere are like, oh, I guess I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan.
I know. Now everybody's excited.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.